Taylor,
Looks like we have a podcast.
why podcasting?
I was very involved in the early blog world. And it was a time when the big US political bloggers were emerging. And blogging was a place.
Andrew Sullivan's of
Andrew
the world.
Sullivan, Ezra Klein, all these big political figures that are now mainstream writers were debating ideas in public and thinking through ideas in public. I think that's gone away. It doesn't exist in the blogging world. Twitter has killed it because you can't have conversations on Twitter. Over the past few years, podcasting has taken that place. You can have long conversations and think through things in public. And I see this as an opportunity to do that. And look, I think this question of technology and society and the impact it's having on our democracy needs people thinking through this stuff in public.
You invited me to a dinner, I think it was 10 years ago, in the basement of a Toronto restaurant.
That's right. Yeah, you were there.
That was all about how social media was changing diplomacy. I don't think Snowden had happened yet.
Yeah, it might have been pre-Snowden. And I think that was really at the time when I was looking at all these positive aspects of technology reshaping the international space. And we brought some, I think, pretty remarkable people together to have this kind of conversation, right? Just openly debating, bringing academics and journalists together.
I remember cynically saying at that dinner that nobody cares about issues of privacy and technology, and good luck getting on the front page of any newspaper.
Yeah, nice call. But nobody did care about it then. I mean, it was pretty fringe to be talking about this a number of years ago. It's clear that this conversation about tech and democracy has burst out into the mainstream discourse. But one thing you really don't see enough of, I think, is the academic community that in various places has been studying this for decades, right? You see this in all aspects of this conversation where there are people with deep expertise in the questions and problems that are now front and center in the public dialogue. And you often see a disconnect between their expertise and what they know and how they communicate and what journalism's now doing as it turns its lens to this space. Journalism, I think, was late to holding this conversation to the kind of accountability it holds other power structures in society. But it's now doing it. But it too often does it disconnected from what we know about these problems.
Right, and this is also where I make my plug for journalism, where this podcast is also about asking questions the other way, which is in journalism, we have a tendency to also course correct and overreact and overreach in what we cover.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a healthy space in these conversations we're having to also look at it from the other side, which is, look, how much of this is on tech companies? How much is on regulatory? How much of this is on the financial system that we have in place that incentivizes certain types of growth?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about these issues, you really can't just look at them through the lens of just the siloed version of what does it mean for Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You have to look at it through what does it mean in terms of the power structures and the way that we do things in this world.
We've been talking about this for a decade, where you've been coming at this from a journalistic lens and reporting on this space and using technology inside newsrooms. And I've been trying to study the impact that's having. And I think there's some value to that interplay between the journalism aspect of this conversation and what researchers are doing in the research world.
I'm so excited to do this thing with you and to listen to other people who are thinking about these things in such a deep way, and so that we can bring that to our listeners in a way that helps them understand and make sense of it all.
Absolutely.
And so I hope that people out there will join us. Find the Big Tech Podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listener and join us when we get started.